Tonight on Meet Your Double Feature. When the jewel that protects her home falls into the wrong hands, Kara Zor-El must travel to Earth to get it back. Helen Slater stars in Supergirl. Then, when robbers begin terrorizing his neighborhood with high-tech weapons, former soldier John Henry Irons must suit up to bring them down. Shaquille O'Neal stars in Steel. It's a superheroic double feature, and it starts right now.
Hello and welcome to Meet Your Double Feature, a double-blind movie review podcast. My name is Thomas, joined as always by my brother Frank. Frank, how's it going?
I'm excited. I'm excited for season 2, brand new season.
Brand new season here on the pod. If you're just joining us for the first time, you've picked a great episode to start with. We are resetting the board and starting a new competition of blind movie recommendations. And Frank, why don't you let us know, what is our theme for this brand new season here on the show?
We're going to do forgotten superhero films, I think. I hope that's the theme because that's what I picked.
Yeah,
so
that's what he picked. So imagine if it was something else. Yes, we are doing forgotten superhero movies, which came about because you and I used to watch a lot of superhero films and TV that predate it becoming like the most mainstream film content on Earth with all the Marvel stuff in the 2010s. And there's just so many weird, interesting films from before that point that were usually just standalone stories about either very popular superhero characters, or as we'll get into today even, very obscure superhero characters. And I think that it'll be really interesting to go back and look at whether any of them are, frankly, any good at all.
I think there's hopefully going to be some gems in there. I think some people have a nostalgia for that like pre-MCU, even like Marvel films, because I think it was the most recent Deadpool film that had that like montage at the end of like all the Fox studio superhero franchises.
Yeah.
And that was a lot of fun, actually. I appreciated that they did that.
I think that the idea of like connecting all of your superhero stories to make it reflect how superhero comics are written is a good idea. Obviously, it's had a huge payoff for Marvel, but when the stories are standalone and are put together by different teams of creatives, it's just more of like a mixed bag of ideas and concepts. So it's more like you don't know what you're going to get. Whereas with Marvel now, you know what a Marvel movie is. It doesn't really matter who's in it. You kind of know what it is, and you've been watching them for like 20 years. So I'm curious to go back and look at what, mostly like the 80s, 90s, and like first half of the 2000s has to offer. In order to better explain the premise, just in case this is anybody's first episode, the way we do things here at Meet You Double Feature is that for each episode, I recommend a movie to Frank to watch, and he recommends a movie for me to watch, and we review those two films on the show and give them each a score out of 10. The trick is that neither of us has ever seen either of the movies that we're talking about. So we're sort of giving a blind pick for a movie that we think the other host will like, but we don't actually know until they come back and report on what they saw.
Yeah. Sometimes I pick movies that I hope you'll like in an ironic way, which I think might be the case today.
Yeah. I'm not saying we always pick movies with good reviews. I think the average Rotten Tomatoes between the two for this episode is like 10%.
It's not good. It's not looking good.
Not good, but I think it'll be fun to talk about. Frank, I think we'll go ahead and start with the movie I asked you to watch. Now, a lot of folks will know that there is a Supergirl movie coming out, I think later this year, 2026, that is a direct follow-up to the James Gunn Superman film. But did you know that there's a Supergirl film from the 1980s? Because I'll be honest, despite seeing a lot of movies like this in the past, I had no idea that they did a Supergirl spinoff at that time. And it kind of blew my mind. And so when I saw that heading into this first season, I was like, well, I got to have somebody watch this. But not me, because it looks like it might not be very good.
Well, you know what? I actually liked this movie. I'll say right off the bat.
Here we go. God, I'm gonna win season 2. For anybody who doesn't know, I won the first season of the show, points-wise overall. I'm back on top. I can feel it.
He did. Well, we'll see. All right, slow down, buddy.
Sorry, I'm excited. It's a new season.
Yeah, hey, that's my thing. I'm excited.
No. All right, tell us about Supergirl. Sorry.
No, it's okay. This is like you said, it does have bad reviews, and I'm not gonna go so far as to say those reviews aren't totally warranted, but okay. I did enjoy it. Like,
good.
Yeah, it's fun, and kind of like you were mentioning just a few minutes ago, like this movie feels like a extremely direct adaptation of a comic book, if that makes any sense. Like,
yeah, of course.
it is a sort of direct spin-off of the Christopher Reeve Superman films.
Oh, okay. I was wondering that because I knew that at the time there was like 4 or 5 of those Christopher Reeve Supermans, which is where the famous Superman music comes from that they still use in like every adaptation since. But yeah, I was curious if there's a connecting thread there.
Yeah, totally. And they don't play the traditional. I think there might be a hint of it in there because Supergirl has her own theme, but for anyone who may not be familiar, let's just play. We're just gonna play 5 minutes of
We're just gonna
the
play
original
copyrighted
Superman theme. Yeah,
John Williams music, Mr. Williams, if you're listening. Is that okay?
Yeah. So we'll just sit back and you guys just listen to that. Tell us what you think.
All right. All right, and we're back. I just got off the phone with our lawyers. They said that's a no-go.
That's not good. You can't do that. Okay. All right, so just go and listen to it on your own time, and I guess...
yeah, but come back, though. Come back.
Come back. Tell us what you thought.
Okay.
No, this was... I think Jerry Goldsmith was the composer for this one. And Supergirl's theme is fine. It's not as iconic as the original Superman one. But... yeah, like I was saying, this ties in directly to those films. I believe Christopher Reeve was going to have a cameo at some point in this movie, but wasn't able to for like scheduling reasons. There's a picture of him as Superman in the movie, and the actor playing Jimmy Olsen is in this as well as Jimmy Olsen. So,
okay, I was going to say, as Lex Luthor, as Superman, what is it?
No.
You look familiar.
I think I've seen this guy before. The cast, by the way, we got to get into the cast here. Like, listen to some of the people in this movie. All right, we got Faye Dunaway. You have to. You don't have a choice. Okay, Faye Dunaway. You got Mia Farrow. Peter O'Toole is in this.
Oh, I love him. I love Peter O'Toole. That's Lawrence of Arabia for film school people.
Yeah, exactly. And all those people irrelevant, okay? Because the real star here...
What the heck?
Irrelevant. Doesn't matter, all right? I was like, oh, that's nice. But then I got really excited watching the movie because Supergirl's love interest in this movie is played by... I'm not sure how to pronounce his last name. It's Hart Bachner, I believe, who, I mean, I'll just give you a line and you tell me who it is, okay?
Oh, okay. Wait, a line from Supergirl or a line from something else?
Just a line from this actor that you will recognize, and you tell me who it is.
He's going to make him an offer he can't refuse.
Hans, what am I, a method actor? This is radio, not television. Put the gun away.
Whoa, wait. So the Ellis from Die Hard?
Yes!
Okay, that's crazy. That's a pull. I've never seen him in anything else.
Me neither. I was so excited.
Also, that was a surprisingly accurate line read of that line from Die Hard. That was pitch perfect.
Thank you. I was preparing it. But yeah, that was like, I was watching it and like, I was like, there's something really familiar about this guy because he looks a bit different. He doesn't have that like sleazy Ellis beard and his hair is and he's just playing a different type of character.
Yeah.
But then I saw him like take a drink of something and he opened his mouth all wide and I'm like, that's freaking Ellis from Die Hard in this movie.
Okay, that is also a miraculous pull. You know, I first knew it was you by the way you drink things.
Just like, you remember that scene where he's drinking the Coke in Die Hard, and he just
it's
does
right
this
before
thing.
He gets shot. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Okay, that's amazing. Now I understand how you could have the gall to say that Peter O'Toole is irrelevant. I'm on board.
Yeah, exactly. Get him out of here. We don't need him. We got
Get
Ellis.
him out of here. Lawrence of who? Move on.
Peter O'Toole is actually great in this movie. He has a very limited appearance, but they make the most of having Peter O'Toole. He made me laugh right at the beginning because just to get into the setup here, this movie, as I said, is so comic book storytelling. It hurts. It's like just like, but in a way that's like not bad, in a way that like I feel like some modern superhero films have gotten really far away from. They're almost like afraid to like make a movie that tells a story in the way that a comic book originally would have, especially like an older comic book. And the setup for this movie is, it just kind of jumps right into, it doesn't do a lot of explaining. There's not even like a text scroll at the beginning to really explain where we are at the beginning of the film, which is kind of surprising actually. But it was refreshing too, because we're just on this other planet where like these Kryptonian people are living. And like, if you're familiar with like the Superman lore, it's kind of like, oh, I thought they were all dead, but I guess not. Superman just has a cousin that lives on this other planet, I guess.
That is weird. That's like the one thing we know about Superman. They're like, the last son of Krypton, other than your cousin.
Other than your cousin and all those other people she lives with on this other
all
planet.
Those other people. But Superman doesn't really talk to them because they're boring.
Yes.
So he's the last son of Krypton.
This is jumping ahead a little bit, but the way that they say that Superman isn't in this movie is so funny. Like, because it's like you hear it over like the radio, and they're like, "Oh, Superman is away on like a peace treaty mission or something," and they're like, "It says that the planet he's at is several 100 trillion light years away." So they're like, just in case.
100 trillion.
Yes. In case anyone was wondering if Superman was going to be showing up, he's really far away, so he won't be here.
Really. They're like, listen, just to put it into numbers, let's say he starts flying back here at full speed. He would not get here until at least the movie is over. Post
credits, if you will. You've left the theater.
Credits, he's at least like 15 parsecs away.
You won't see him. Don't wait around. Yeah. Don't wait up for Superman.
He's not coming.
So anyway, he's that far away. He's still not talking to his cousin though, because they're on this other planet with Peter O'Toole. And I guess what you gather from the dialogue is that Peter O'Toole is like a scientist of some kind or magician or something. And
one of those.
Some combination of those things. And he like made this planet that they're on habitable for them because he has this like special orb, and it's like a small orb that like fits in the palm of your hand. And he's talking to Supergirl, her name is Kara, and he's kind of explaining to her what this thing is. And then he gives it to her and she's like playing with it, and it like somehow like flies out into space by like ripping through this like plastic sheet almost that covers their whole planet. And that's like the only thing protecting them from the vacuum of space, I guess.
Oh.
It's this like thin plastic sheet.
It broke the ozone.
I guess so. The ozone is very visible and within reach. But she breaks it and she's like, oh darn, we're all gonna die now. They're like, this planet is doomed actually. And this is where Peter O'Toole made me laugh, because it's just like his dialogue is, he's like, well, I guess I gotta go to the Phantom Zone now. He just like sentences himself to the Phantom Zone. Like nobody says like, you got to go do this. He's like, no, I'm gonna go. He just goes
straight for the like, all right, I'm gonna head out, because he doesn't want to fix the ozone.
Yeah, they're like, are you sure you don't want to stick around? He's like, nah, Phantom. I think Phantom Zone for this one.
Phantom Zone's calling to me.
Yeah, just gonna.
Which I guess maybe if people haven't seen the old Supermans, Phantom Zone is like just like purgatory. It's where they sentence criminals sometimes on Krypton.
Yes, exactly. It's where you get put into like a spinning glass plate is how it's visualized in the movies, but then you're in like some other world. So like, you sure you don't want to stick around and have, sorry, I can't hear you, Phantom Zone, gotta go.
Phantom Zone is calling. I have a 3 o'clock in the Phantom Zone. That's great. That's my reaction to problems too, when you just are like, I'm on break.
I'm on break in the Phantom Zone. So then Supergirl takes it upon herself. She's like, all right, well, I guess I gotta go get that orb that flew out into space. And she gets into like, they call it something else, but I'm going to call it a boom tube. It's basically a boom tube, which is a DC
proper
thing.
DC lore. Yeah, that's just like their teleporters in a lot of the TV shows.
Yeah, so she just like boom tubes to Earth because that's where it lands. It goes, coincidentally, there's a lot of coincidences in this movie, but it coincidentally flew to Earth where her cousin lives, but is not there. He's several hundred trillion light years away.
Several hundred trillion. Farther than any man could travel in the length of a film.
And yeah, what do you got? Like 2 hours? There's no way.
There's no way. This could be a Snyder cut Supergirl and he couldn't make it back. It's that far.
Yeah. There was actually, I was looking at the trivia. Apparently there was like some footage found from this film like way later at the studio it was filmed at that was just like in a film canister that just was labeled "Do Not Use." And
nice.
And so I don't know if that's the version I saw, because I guess they restored that footage and then included it in like an anniversary Blu-ray release of the movie. So I don't know. I watched this on HBO streaming service because this is a DC Warner Brothers property, which by the time this recording comes out will probably be called Net Warner Paramount Flicks or something. But
nailed it. Really nailed that bit.
People will get it. Watch the news.
People will get it. Watch the news. The right news.
The Krypton news.
The Krypton news. Leading scientist exiles self to Phantom Zone?
Question mark? So anyway, the coincidences of this movie. The orb thing, magic science orb thing goes to Earth, and this is where we're introduced to our bad guy characters, who is our main villain is Faye Dunaway. She's like a witch, which again, this is just, you just discover this through the dialogue, which is fun. She's just like talking about, like, one of the first things she says is like, basically, I'm a witch and I want to take over the world. And they're just like,
good. Manifest that.
Yeah, exactly. And they're just out having a picnic, and the orb thing just like lands in her soup, and she's like, "Oh, okay, well, this is good. I'll just use this." Yeah,
this fishing board thing really works, huh?
Yeah, exactly. She just puts that away.
Wow, very cartoony.
Exactly, it's super cartoony. This felt very like Saturday morning cartoon, or just like old campy comic book storytelling, which I was fine with. You know, it was almost like played intentionally comedically, and that's essentially the tone of the whole film.
Good. That's fairly in line with the 80s Superman as well. There's a lot of like campiness to the whole thing.
Yeah, exactly. This is almost more so, I would say. Like, I appreciate Christopher Reeve's performance as Superman. I think if we're talking Superman actors, he's one of the better, if not the best ones in terms of on screen.
Yeah.
As always, the best Superman portrayal is from the DC animated universe. That's the best Superman. But
oh, okay. Welcome back to our show where we rank Superman.
Well, if we were talking like portrayal of DC characters, my favorite thing just in all of comic books even is everything that's come out of the DC animated universe. That like,
that's true, especially that run in like the 2000s where it was like the Justice League show and then the Justice League Unlimited show. That was good stuff.
It was amazing. Yeah, and like I said, genuinely probably one of the best on-screen portrayals of all of those characters.
Yeah, no, he was great. But I will also give you that, yeah, Christopher Reeve, as far as like live action movie Superman, I think he's far and away the best one.
Yes, but that being said, those films are pretty boring.
Well, hold on.
I mean,
you're telling me that when he throws nuclear bombs into the sun in order to solve war and makes Nuclear Man and fights Nuclear Man on the moon, that you were not entertained?
That was when I was the most entertained. You can't just jump to the peak. All right, that's Superman 4: Quest for Peace. All right, I'm talking like Superman's 1 and 2 here. Like,
more like Quest for Peak.
Yeah. There you go. We're back, season 2, everybody.
We're back. We do comedy on this show. A little.
A little. Nobody said it had to be funny, but we do it.
No, we do it. Anyway, Supergirl.
Supergirl, I would say, maybe this is a recency bias, but I'm like, I think I like this more than those Christopher Reeve Superman movies. Like,
oh, shoot. That's like actual praise. Hold on.
Yeah, it's just because, like, I have to give a lot of credit. It's the actress's name playing Supergirl is Helen Slater. And I think this was her first feature film. performance. And she's great. It's a very different take on the character than what people are going to see from this new version of Supergirl in the new movie that's coming out, where she's sort of a drunk party girl almost is the vibe they're going for.
Yep.
This portrayal of Supergirl is just like this wide-eyed, innocent character. But it's fun because she's just kind of different from the origin story of Superman that you got, where he was like raised on Earth to like live among humans. She's from space, and she just like has all of this like knowledge of things outside of Earth, so she's not like discovering things in the same way that he was.
Yeah.
And she also has this sort of like narrative momentum of she has to find this orb, which I feel like those other Superman films, that was something that they kind of lacked almost, is like, oh, Superman's got to stop Lex Luthor. Is very like reactive almost. And so those sometimes lacked that narrative momentum, excuse me.
That's true. I feel like he was more of a standby superhero. He was like, you come to me. And it's like, all right. What was that quest for peace then, Superman? You didn't go anywhere.
Yeah. Again, Quest for Peace is the best one. That's the Canon Films one, I think.
Yeah.
But yeah, so I like that. I like that she has like, and the villain in this, Faye Dunaway's character is also extremely campy. She like lives in like an abandoned amusement park that they've like dressed up to look like this like witchy lair, and I'm like, this is fun. This is like goofy fun. And her Faye Dunaway's like love interest / sidekick / nemesis character that she's with is just this guy who like really wants to be with her, and she's seemingly using him because he knows more about magic than she does, and she's trying to like use her like magic powers to take over the world. It's never said why. She just, like you said, vision board. She just wants to.
Just really want that.
She just does. She just really wants that.
She wants a Nissan Altima, and she wants to take over the world.
Right, exactly.
And they're like, Miss Dunaway, the Ultima was not on the road yet at this time. It's 1984. And she's like, that's why I want it.
That's why you're not getting this. Pay attention.
Okay, this is good. I feel like there's, like you said, narrative momentum. Immediately differentiate Supergirl from Superman and send Superman at least several movies away from here.
Several movies. He'll be back by Superman 4, don't worry, but not this movie.
Yep. Okay, well, that's fun.
Yeah, exactly. So we got a good setup. Again, the coincidences of the story continue because that character that's hanging out with Faye Dunaway. Well, I guess I'll rewind a little bit and get to where Supergirl, when she lands on Earth, she lands like near a softball field. She sees these girls playing softball at some kind of like all girls school, and she decides to try and fit in by like attending the school. And that villain character that's hanging out with Faye Dunaway just happens to also be a teacher at that school. So I'm just like, okay, so it's just we're all looped in here. Just a series of like narrative coincidences keeping all of these characters together.
If you lean into it, then it's fine.
Exactly. It's like, it's not just one thing. It's just like, this is just the world of the film that we're inhabiting. Also, fun fact. So Superman, right, lives in Metropolis.
I'm sorry. I thought that was the end of that sentence. So like Superman, right?
Right?
Crazy.
You can fly? I don't think so. Watch the real news.
Watch the real news. I'm
not
a
the Daily Planet.
Truther.
Yeah.
He just jumps really far, okay?
There's strings or something. There's gotta be.
Daily Planet. Those hacks at the Daily Planet. Like they're loser reporters like Schmark Ken or whatever.
So Daily Planet, Metropolis, fake city. Batman lives in Gotham City. Whatever, right? Where do you think Supergirl lives? Just off the top of your head.
What's like the fake city where Supergirl's from? Wichita?
Yeah, exactly. It's Chicago. So Supergirl lives in Chicago.
Okay. Nice. Windy City superhero, the only one.
Yes. Yeah, I was like, wait a minute. She doesn't get a made-up city. She just lives in a real city?
She lives in the real city that is like the main inspiration for Gotham City, but is not Gotham City.
Yeah. Yeah. So anyway, Supergirl goes to this school where the bad guy also happens to be the teacher, and then she meets her roommate, who is Lucy Lane, which is a new Lane sister or cousin I'm not familiar with.
Probably cousin, given the theme of the movie. Yeah, because there's Lois Lane, that's Superman's friend.
Okay.
Yep. Look, he doesn't want to define the relationship. Anyway,
Sure.
And then there's Lana Lane is usually, I think in these 80s movies, she just went to high school with Superman. She was like in Smallville.
Yes, she was the main character in the TV show Smallville.
Correct. You said this is Lucy?
This is Lucy Lane. And for some reason, Supergirl herself, despite her real name being Kara, which is a normal human Earth name, her alter ego that she takes on is Linda Lee. So they have this whole like wordplay conversation with like all these like alliterative L names where it's like Linda Lee talking to Lucy Lane about Lois Lane. Like, I'm like, all right, whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, go nuts.
Good for her.
Yeah, good for you. But that was a new Lane character. I was maybe the comic book nerds out there will be like, of course, okay, Chicago, Lucy Lane. Okay. You don't know this.
The comic book nerds are going to be screeching at this entire conversation because we're like, we know comic books. Who's Supergirl?
Yeah, right, exactly. And speaking of comic books, when she meets Lucy Lane, she's reading a comic book, but it's an Incredible Hulk comic book, and I'm like, wait a minute. That's not right.
Oh.
You can't do that.
You can't do that. That's illegal.
Yeah. But, I mean, whatever. I guess.
All right. That's a fun nod.
Yes. And then to keep the connections going, Lucy Lane is dating Jimmy Olsen. So that's how he becomes part of the story.
Okay. How do we get Ellis from Die Hard in here?
So he is a gardener.
Okay.
And what else do you need to know?
Yeah, no, that's fine. I just feel like I'm intrigued that theoretically a Supergirl movie is people in some marketing room who are like, girls don't want to watch Superman. They want to see Supergirl. And so this one was the classic case of taking like what they thought was a quote like boy product and trying to make like a girl version. And it seems like part of the way they did that was they gave everybody like a love interest. The fact that even the villain has one.
Yeah, no, exactly. And that's the thing. It becomes sort of a love triangle because Faye Dunaway is just using the other guy. Like, he wants to be with her, but she's just using him for his knowledge of, like, dark magic, basically. Which, again, is not explained. They're just like, this is just a thing that exists in this world. Deal with it.
Good.
Yeah, of course. I'm like, that's great. Don't, like, yeah, I don't need you to...
The last thing I need is lore. I'm sick of lore.
Yes.
I don't need it. I need contextual information.
Yeah. I'm like, yes, I'm with it. Thank you. But Faye Dunaway, that is, her character's name is Selena, but we can just keep calling her Faye Dunaway.
Not going to remember that. It's Faye Dunaway.
Yeah. She sees Ellis and, like, is just like, well, I have to have him. And she puts, like, an evil spell on him so that he will fall in love with the first person he sees, which she intends to be her. Yep. And you can, of course, guess this goes wrong. And he winds up seeing Supergirl first and falls in love with her immediately. And then that kind of becomes the conflict. That's really what gets Supergirl involved with Faye Dunaway's character at all.
So Supergirl is a superhero and Faye Dunaway is here to take over the world, but the thing that actually puts them at odds with each other is a man.
Yeah Duh. Of course,
that's fine, that's good.
yes And the whole thing is like Ellis's character, he's under a spell, so he immediately meets Supergirl, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm in love with you." And she's like, "What? That's crazy, but okay, I guess that's fine. Yeah, we can do that."
Yeah,
like
that works for me.
Yeah. But then again, coincidentally, Faye Dunaway has the orb that Supergirl is looking for, that she presumably needs to boom tube back to her planet so they don't all die. I don't know. We never see them again.
We never see them again. Wait, what? Does she ever go back and fix it?
She does. Spoilers. That's the end of the movie. She's
okay.
Yeah. Like, Supergirl does, in fact, save the day. We do see Peter O'Toole again, which is great.
Good.
Because he banished himself out of 90% of the movie, but then he is there near the end when Faye Dunaway sends Supergirl to the Phantom Zone, and then he has to help her get out, and she finds him there. He's mostly been getting drunk the whole time, which I think is maybe why he wanted to go there in the first place.
I knew this Phantom Zone thing was a grift. He's like, no, it's so bad in here. You can't. It's the worst phantoms everywhere.
You've seen the scene with the match or whatever. It's pretty cool.
I ended World War I.
We're like, all right, time to go to bed, Peter O'Toole.
And the crazy thing is, he improv'd all of that.
He did. He made it all up on the spot.
He showed up to set one day with script notes that said, I go to the Phantom Zone. And they're like, you were supposed to be in the movie, Mr. O'Toole. And he's like,
You were supposed to be in the movie.
I'm Peter O'Toole. This is my first movie. And they're like, no, it's not.
No, it's not, buddy. You're wrong, actually.
He puts himself in the credits of every movie he's ever been in as introducing Peter O'Toole because he thinks it'll get people to be like, wow, that's pretty good for his first time.
That's pretty good for his first time in the Phantom Zone?
Introducing Academy Award nominee Peter O'Toole.
How does he do it?
How does he do that? Phantom Zone, probably.
Yeah.
Oh, man. I was worried that this movie would be like super uninteresting. I picked it because I was like hoping it would be something like this, and because it was trendy, because there's a new Supergirl, but I'm on board. I want to see this one now.
Yeah. I mean, again, it's not fantastic, but if you just go in and accept that it's like, especially because you and I are not super into comic books. I think there was a time where at least I read some older comic books, pick them up from the local library.
That's exactly what I was going to say. We used to get the like big anthology collections of like 90s Spider-Man or X-Men or something.
Even earlier, I remember reading like 60s, like original run.
Oh, shit.
X-Men.
Yeah, no, you're right. It was like really old a lot of the time.
Yeah. And so this feels like if you took that and translated it not X-Men, if you took Supergirl or Superman and translated it directly to screen. And I liked it for that reason. Like, it wasn't trying to like take this and make it like a dark, gritty, real world version of that, which I feel like is the trend that a lot of superhero films have gone down, and mostly in an attempt to imitate like Batman projects.
Yeah, Batman's the one case where that worked, and I think everything else has been varying degrees of like,
Yeah, but even like the way like the film depicts her like using her heat vision or her like super hearing or X-ray vision, it's like the same way that they would like animate it in the comic strips. And I'm like, this is good, actually. This is like, for the time this film was made, for the material it was adapting, this is a fun live action adaptation, honestly. And so it was fun. It was campy fun, honestly. Again, not amazing, but like there was other cool stuff in there, like cool, like I said, cool set design, cool like creature effects, like, because Faye Dunaway is using this magic to like summon monsters and stuff sometimes. And
oh, okay, that's fun. What are some creatures that we get to see?
Well, there's one funny scene where like the first creature that she sends after Supergirl is like invisible. So
nice.
The first half of the action sequence is like Supergirl getting like hit around by this creature you don't see. So it's just like them like pulling her on like stunt wires like into things, which is fun. But then her solution to that conflict is she like rips like a lamppost out of the ground and like flies up into a thunderstorm and like charges it with lightning, and then like comes back down and like blasts the invisible creature with lightning, and then you see him because he's like this like demogorgon looking monster, and he gets like electrocuted, and that's how she defeats him. And I'm like, oh, that was fun. Like,
That's very comic booky. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. And then there's a similar thing at the end where when Faye Dunaway is, sort of in control in the third act, and she has the full power of this orb, and she summons like a giant creature that kind of looks like the thing from Ghostbusters.
Wait, which thing from Ghostbusters?
I can't remember what it's called, actually.
Is it the thing on the roof?
Not the Stay Puft Marshmallow Man. Yes, the thing on the roof.
Gozer?
Yes, Gozer. Thank you. Yeah,
Gozer.
It's a Gozer-looking creature. And I just honestly thought that was, again, in terms of making this interesting, I thought that like making Faye Dunaway's character be a witch and have like magic powers actually made her an interesting foil for Supergirl. Because I think that's a common thing in stories about like Superman and related characters, is that he's just like, they're just invincible. It's like, how do you create stakes for this character other than kryptonite, which is really boring. But I don't know how long this has been around in the comics, but I've heard that another weakness for like Superman and Supergirl is magic, and so it actually gives them something to contend with.
Yeah.
So I thought that was a good choice, because then it put her in these situations where she was actually able to use her powers, in order to and not just like stop people, like catch people falling out of buildings, which is...
I'm trying to think about it now. Like the first two Superman movies, he's not really fighting like the 80s Superman movies. He's just fighting like an evil scheming man. And then I think he fights like evil Superman, and then he fights Nuclear Man, who's everybody's favorite. But for the most part, it was not like Superman fighting monsters, which I feel like this immediately gives a fun angle to Supergirl, that it's a little bit more just straightforward. Like, it gives her something to punch or electrocute at least.
Right, exactly. Yeah, totally. Like, so that's why, I mean, I know it's maybe sounds like a bold claim, but I was like, I kind of like this more. And it was just like, I liked it more for a few reasons, because she was different from Superman. They were telling a Superman story, but with a new character. And the things that made her different made her more interesting watching this. Because there's been so much Superman. There's been tons of films and adaptations of that character. So it was just fun that it was just like, somebody was like, hey, like Superman, right? Like, what if there was like the other one, a girl, Supergirl?
Yeah. What's the opposite of that?
Yeah.
No, that totally makes sense. I think that sometimes when you're doing spin-offs of something, it can feel very like unnecessary or derivative, but a good spin-off can be successful just by being intentionally different from the original thing in as many ways as possible. Like, without the existence of the Superman movies, this one might not stand out as much, but when you've seen Clark Kent Superman in a very set formula, and then you intentionally disrupt that formula with a similar but, new enough character, that's interesting. Like, I'm sure if you went back and watched the original 80s Superman, you'd be like, all right, this is more sound as a film overall. But for someone who's seen those, this is like a fun one. It's like a good just way to kind of mix things up.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, she still does, there's a sequence that's kind of fun, actually, where like at one point so after Ellis has been given the love potion, he's kind of like stumbling around, and Faye Dunaway's trying to get him back. She like takes control like remotely with her magic of like a not a bulldozer. What's the one that like has like the crane arm that like grabs stuff and picks it up?
Oh, a bulldozer.
Yeah, sure. So a bulldozer.
I don't know, a crane? Could you just call it
Sure.
a crane?
Yeah, whatever. Crane, bulldozer, heavy machinery. She scoops him up and has him trapped in there, and she's like driving it through the city and like knocking stuff over and hitting cars and stuff. And, Supergirl has to like save him and like fix that situation. And that's all very classic, like especially like Christopher Reeve style Superman stuff, where like there's a fire, so she like flies through like a water tower to like put the fire out, and then she has to like catch the crane and like use her super strength to like, take the arm off. And so it has all that too. So it has all those things you're familiar with and would be expecting from a Superman movie.
I feel like that's actually a really key part of what makes classic superhero action fun, is it's like taking recognizable adult spaces in the world and then using them as like a child's playset. Like, what could you do? Like, there's a lot of times as a kid where you'll be like in the back of a car and you'll be like looking up at the roof. I feel like it's like a common thing where people like imagine someone like running along the roof, like a superhero or Captain Falcon or something. And you're just kind of like that's a common thing.
Yeah.
It's like just kids imagining stuff while they're bored and like looking out at this world that's like not for them yet, and just kind of imagining all the different fun things you could do if it didn't have any consequence and was just to like play with the structure of it all. And I feel like that's what a lot of the most interesting like superhero action stuff is. And that's what that sounds like to me. Like I can imagine a kid seeing a bulldozer and not knowing what it's called and just kind of imagining a sequence like that. And then to put that on screen, I imagine it's just like, good for you.
Yeah, that's good for you. Yeah, so that's a really good way to put it, actually. I mean, I still do that now. I think that's why it's fun for adults and kids, honestly. Like,
that's what I mean.
Like
it's like a child's mindset.
Yeah, it's like, well, this is, a playground. It's like, even as an adult, you want to go out and play. And that's kind of what this film is, vicariously giving the opportunity to do. So yeah, so it's like, it's fun that it had that stuff in there as well. And honestly, yeah, I appreciated it for what it was like. And, like I said, I give big props to Helen Slater, who was playing Supergirl. I looked up her filmography. She's appeared in other DC projects since then too. She was a guest character on a few episodes of Smallville, which I thought was cool.
Oh, that's awesome.
And yeah, and she's like voiced other DC characters in like animated projects. So I'm glad that she's also kind of, because again, this film I never hear anybody talk about. It's a very
That's
forgotten.
What I mean. How is
like,
nobody brought up that there's an 80s Supergirl movie even now when there's a new one coming out? It has not been mentioned to my knowledge once. And again, there's people who are like, I've been talking about Supergirl 84 for 60 years.
Yeah, wait a minute.
Ever since it introduced us to Peter O'Toole.
Who? But
yeah.
But yeah, I read that it was supposed to launch more of a film franchise. It was supposed to be a film spin-off franchise. There was going to be more Supergirl movies, but it just did really poorly at the box office and critically, which I honestly wholeheartedly disagree with the critical reception to this movie. I don't know like what people were even expecting. I mean, honestly, I was watching this and there's clearly a lot of things you could fault it for. I mean, a lot of the effects look extremely hokey and dated and the performances are cheesy, whatever. But those are the things I like about it. But it was the weirdness of it, like the weird things that it did. Where I was like, modern movies could never. Current Supergirl that's about to come out could never do this weird stuff that this movie is doing.
Yeah. It'll be limited by people's expectations for these tentpole superhero movies to kind of just be everything for everyone instead of one specific thing done well.
Yes, exactly. Somebody had ideas that they wanted to put in here, and they did.
Well, that's hype.
Yeah, that's it hype. Is. Go Supergirl.
Go Supergirl. Girls, get it done. Is this our first?
Cut that all out.
Cut that all out. Yeah. So our first forgotten superhero movie for the season. Generally positive thoughts. I'm happy to hear that.
Wow. Who'd have thought?
Okay, great. Well, we're going to head into our intermission. And then when we come back, Frank, we'll talk about the movie you asked me to watch, 1997's Steel. And in the meantime, I got to go to the Phantom Zone. I don't know about you.
Yeah, we'll just play the Superman music while you're gone.
We'll play the Superman music for a few more minutes. And then when we get back, I'm sure the lawyers will have nothing but good news. Okay, and we're back on the other side of the break. Frank, just heard back from the lawyers. They still do not want us playing the entire John Williams Superman song, turns out.
Why not?
I don't know. It's like they're being really weird about it, and frankly, a little mean.
Yeah. Hmm. Hmm.
Hmm. Hmm. We're back. All right. We're moving now into, Frank, the first forgotten superhero film that you asked me to watch. This one, I had never heard of in my life, either the
Yeah, me
movie
neither.
or the character it's based on. This is 1997's Steel, starring NBA legend Shaquille O'Neal.
Yeah.
What is this?
You tell me. That was all I knew, and that was all I needed to know to recommend it. I was like, Shaq, Steel, let's go.
Because, like, okay, when did Space Jam come out? That was Michael Jordan making a movie in the midst of his basketball career. But wasn't that, like, not long before this?
I could be wrong. I want to say Space Jam was 95.
Okay, so theoretically, somebody saw that Space Jam was, like, a box office success, I imagine, and was like, let's do Shaquille O'Neal? Like, even in reading about the production history behind this movie, it's not completely clear why they started talking to him in the first place. A lot of the notes were more so just like what they approached him with initially and like the kind of negotiations for getting Shaq to be able to do this movie. Because at the time, the NBA was in the off season when the movie was being filmed, but he was competing on the Team USA at the 1996 Olympics. So like Shaq was busy.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, it makes sense though. Like, you sell a movie on star power, and Shaq, especially at that time, was a huge star. I mean, he was on the 96 Olympics team.
Exactly. Also, unbelievably tall man. I don't think I'd ever really like contextualized it. The man's like 7 feet tall. He looks absurd in this movie next to every other character in the movie. To the point where there's people in the story who are like, who's this masked man that's 7 feet tall? There's only one guy in town that's 7 feet tall.
I mean, again, but that also makes sense as to why you're like, okay, we need somebody who's a star and is also enormous to play our superhero. Like, it's just, who else could it be but Shaq?
It's interesting. It's definitely the main selling point for the movie. The thing that I got into in trying to like organize my thoughts is by the time the movie was done, I was like, okay, I need to figure out who this comic book character is, and also other context about the character, because there's just things in here that are not fully explained and I don't understand without like looking it up. So the character Steel is once again a DC Comics superhero, and he's actually a direct associate of Superman, to the point where in this movie they're calling Shaq the Man of Steel.
Whoa, okay, we did a very unintentional Superman double feature then.
This is like a Superman Friends double feature, because in the comic series, this is not what the movie does, but in the comic books, there's a very famous story arc called The Death of Superman, which was adapted multiple times. I think it is part of that like Justice League movie that Zack Snyder made. Superman dies, he comes back to life. He Jesus, you get it.
You get it.
You get it. 3 days or something. Easter?
That's Superman lore, yeah.
That's Superman, yeah. So, in the comic books, one Superman is dead. This guy, just a human man who used to work for Lex Luthor as an engineer, decides that Lex Luthor is bad, good for him, and makes himself like a suit of armor that gives him superhuman like strength and the ability to fly, and he basically becomes a stand-in for Superman because Superman at that point is dead. And so Steel is like taking over as like a protector for Metropolis. And so he even has in his original design the Superman S like on his chest, and he has like a cape. So he's very much replacement Superman. And then Superman comes back, Easter Sunday, Easter Bunny, and then Steel, I don't know what he does after that.
What, and is this all seen in this movie, or is this the original interpretation of the character?
So that's the comic book iteration of the character. He then makes sparse appearances in other DC media. For a superhero character, the fact that his Wikipedia page is not like 40,000 football fields long is very telling. Like, he does not have a long history of appearances. Although he does show up in the DC animated universe. I think he was in like the 90s animated Superman show, Steel was. And in that one, he was voiced by Michael Dorn, who is Worf from Star Trek.
Oh, yes. I love whenever we can get a Star Trek connection in here.
I knew you would like the Star Trek connection. So that was one of the earlier versions of Steel. In the film context, in the 90s, again, I did not have time to find out the full context here because I would have had to pick up a book and read about it, which Never.
We don't do that on this show, yeah.
We do not read things. You can't make me. Essentially, it is heavily rumored or maybe confirmed that when this movie with Shaq was being originally developed, it was supposed to be a spin-off from a movie about Superman that covered the Death of Superman storyline. So they were going to make a film in the 90s about that and then have Steel maybe appear in it and then have his own spin-off movie that like tied into it somehow. And I think based on the timing, that later canned Superman project might have been the one where it was going to be Nicolas Cage as Superman.
Whoa, so they were going to kill Nick Cage Superman?
I think maybe at some point that was like the storyline they were going to cover in this movie, and then Steel's production was going to have some ties to it. But because that Superman project fell through, even before Shaquille O'Neal got involved, this Steel movie became like a standalone project that has no in-universe connection to any other DC stuff. In fact, in the movie Steel that you had me watch, they actually make several jokes about DC superheroes as like comic book characters. Like they're not real people in the context of Steel.
I see. Okay. Well, that's fine. I'm cool with that.
Yeah. So instead, we get like kind of that thing we were joking about before, where it's like a somewhat more grounded iteration of that story. So Steel in this movie is Shaq. He doesn't have a cape. He doesn't have the Superman S. He does get the Superman S tattooed on his arm. And they say like, hey, look at you. You're the Man of Steel. And I think they even at one point say something about like a bat cave, but it's all like super lame tongue-in-cheek jokes. So in the movie, he's just a man of steel, and Superman exists, but is a fictional character.
Yeah, that's so interesting. I'm trying to like rationalize why so many superhero projects kind of went that route where where it was all very tongue-in-cheek, like they were almost making fun of the material they were adapting, like look at what we're doing, but like comics are for nerds though, am I right? Like
yes, that was the whole tone of superhero movies for the longest time. It's like the people who would get assigned to write them and direct them seemed like agitated to be tied to a superhero product because they were like, it's for babies. I'm not doing that. But then it was like, well, you want money? And they're like, all right, fine, I'll do it, but I'm going to have to tell you that I don't like it.
Right. And now we're on the completely opposite side of that spectrum, where it's like if you mess up one tiny detail in a modern superhero film, the internet will just be like, well, you shouldn't be allowed to live anymore, obviously. Like,
that guy, believe it or not, straight to the Phantom Zone.
Get him in there, Peter.
Peter, yep. Mr. O'Toole, you got room for Zack Snyder in there? So yeah, Steel is weird in that regard. It's still mid-90s. We're well before the like modern crop of superhero films, but it sort of fits right in that it tells like a basic superhero origin story that's completely grounded in vaguely real-world context. In the movie, we get a whole new origin for the character. The guy that Shaquille O'Neal is playing is named John Henry Irons, which itself actually has, I don't want to say lore implications because it's more so just history. The name John Henry is a reference to like an American folktale hero, and itself is based on a real guy. You might have vaguely heard of this. I know it kind of rung a bell for me. It was a guy who, in these like famous songs and stuff, kind of competed in this like man versus machine race where he was using a hammer to like chisel into a mountain, and he was trying to race against like a steam-powered machine.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, right? And so John Henry wins the race, but he dies from exhaustion, like still holding the hammer in his hand. And it was like a whole thing where there is some real historical person who they think is John Henry, but the whole thing is just mythos that has been used in a lot of like stuff since then. It was used in like World War II US propagandas, like Go America. It was used during like the Civil Rights Movement because the character has a lot of ties to both human endurance, but also like the history of like labor and exploitation in America. So like it's a very loaded bit of folk history that in both the comic book and in this movie is like the inspiration behind Steel having a hammer.
Oh, all right. You know what? I'm on board. That's great.
Right? There's a lot going for this already. I was like, this movie started, and like we talked about, both our movies today have very, very bad critical receptions. But Steel kicks off, and I'm like, okay, Steel is a cheap-looking movie, but it's not like a giant mess or anything. It's a fairly competent superhero origin movie that just strips away the more direct like comic book inspirations and goes for just kind of like, what if a guy in a metal suit fought crime?
Yeah, Yeah, exactly. I mean, Supergirl is kind of the same way, where it didn't look, especially by today's standards, a lot of it looked cheesy. But that's like what you want almost. It's like you can see the seams of the filmmaking going on there.
Exactly. So I was on board with that right away. Some of those details don't come out until later in the story where they start making direct reference, and it caused me to go back and Google, like, what is this John Henry thing? I know that's familiar. But I did like those elements behind the actual DC character. The movie itself retells the origin story as Shaq, who I know is named John Henry Irons, but I'm probably just going to keep calling him Shaquille O'Neal. Yep. Shaq is in the military, and he develops advanced weaponry for the U.S. military. And there's a scene at the beginning that very appropriately opens with a shot of like nature, just like the woods, and then like a tank like rolls over into frame and like crushes all the plants and stuff. And it's like, okay, natural world versus the, dangerous man-made machines and weapons of war. I get it. And then we go to this scene that's them testing out new weaponry on like a testing range. And Shaq built all this stuff with his best friend Sparky, who's this lady in the Navy, and they're good buds, and they make weapons together because it's fun, I guess. But during the weapons test, the villain, played by Judd Nelson, shows up.
Oh,
and
okay.
Mr. Bender from The Breakfast Club comes in, and we find out on this intro scene that he has been toying with all of the weapons that they're making to make them more powerful and more destructive. So like the first thing they're testing out, which is used a lot throughout the movie, is like a sonic wave gun that shoots like, it can like push stuff around. It's not like a gun that would shoot something, but it can be used to like knock things over or move them. And Shaquille O'Neal built a very nice pacifistic shockwave gun, but Judd Nelson is like, I modified your design and I'm going to turn it up to 11 and now it's going to blow up a building. And believe it or not, he tries to show them how that works, and it blows up a building and it gets several people killed.
You see, it did work.
Which I understand. It's very like childlike storytelling, just like this bad man made the notch go up too high. But the whole time I'm like, you literally have one of this? This isn't like a blueprint you made to make a weapon. You made like one test weapon. And Shaquille O'Neal, I guess, left it somewhere that Judd Nelson walked over and like fiddled with it. It's so sparse on detail that it comes across really funny. Like there's no context for what he did. He's just like, I made the power notch go higher. And then he's like, you can't do that. And he's like, I just did. And then it's like, okay, come on, guys. Is this a first draft?
I just did.
It's so egregiously simple in its explanation, even though it's supposed to be about like futuristic high-powered weapons. That part is very silly, but it's very effective for what they're going for because it helps explain the foil for Shaquille O'Neal. He uses advanced weaponry for good, I guess, but the bad guy makes them too dangerous, and Shaquille O'Neal wants all these to be non-lethal weapons, and the other guy doesn't. Because of the accident that Judd Nelson causes, Shaquille O'Neal testifies against him and gets him like thrown out of the army, and Judd Nelson vows revenge, and he's just like, I'll get you, Gadget, or whatever. And then, because of that same event, Shaquille O'Neal becomes disillusioned because his best friend Sparky gets severely injured in that accident and loses the ability to walk. And he's so devastated about all of this and his role in it that he also quits the army.
Oh, so Sparky becomes like his Oracle? Like with
Sparky is literally just Oracle. Yeah, she is the brains of the operation alongside Shaq. She has to, use a wheelchair because she injured her spine in the accident. And there's a whole secondary narrative for her throughout the story of the movie of her coming to terms with her disability and kind of like regaining her confidence, which is both kind of like tenderly shown, but also at times really, really unintentionally funny. Like, let's focus in on Sparky because she comes in and out of the movie throughout the first half, but the overall story for her character is insane. She's in the army. She gets injured in the accident, right? She can no longer walk. Shaquille O'Neal goes to visit her in the hospital, and I guess like nobody's told her yet that it's like not something she can recover from. So at first she's like, I'm going to get back on my feet. And Shaq knows that she's not, but he like placates her about it. And then later in the story, he goes to visit her at like the VA hospital. And at this point, she's like understands now that she can't walk anymore and is just super miserable about it. And there's a scene where Shaq is trying to motivate her, and it's really, really strange.
What does he do?
So he goes over to her And, it's Shaquille O'Neal. He's not a trained actor, so he's not really showing a lot of range without any of this. And he's enormous, just comically large man delivering these lines. And he's just talking to her like, come on, Sparky, like, you still have a lot to offer. You can do it. And she's just miserable. And so he, in order to like wind her up, he just like slams open a window that she's sitting behind to try to, kind of be this imagery of like, let the fresh air in, like it's a new day. But he like slams the windows so hard that they just like break. And so the windows are off the hinges. And he's like, look, outside. And then I guess that kind of works. And she's like, Shaq, I don't know what I'm going to do. And then he scoops her up out of the wheelchair and just walks her out of this VA hospital where she's still being treated. And all of the other patients at the hospital applaud this.
I knew they were going to clap. Well, I just knew
start
that's
clapping.
where it was going.
Like, what? This man just kidnapped some lady from the hospital.
And
this
broke
is not a
the
clap-worthy.
building.
Yeah, he broke the building and then left, and everyone's just like, good for you.
Oh, that's great. No, yeah. What were you expecting? I mean, what else?
So that part, weird. The next scene you get with them, because she becomes like, I think a trope that people have now identified is like, guy in the chair, like person behind the wheel who's like giving him information while they go out on their missions. But there's a scene where she like is kind of in that like preparatory phase where they're making the steel suit for Shaq, and she like falls out of the chair and somebody goes to help her and Shaq's like, no. And it's all done without words. He's like clearly intimating like, let her do this herself. And then so she has a moment where she feels helpless, but then she like struggles and she gets herself back up into the chair, and then they kind of get like a nice moment. And I was like, you know what? That's good. That is some very sound 90s, like after-school special storytelling about disability narratives, and I'm surprised they handled that part as well as they did.
Well, and also that part does it in a way that covers up Shaq's lack of acting ability too. If they're just visually showing that scene instead of him trying to give his motivational speech as a giant and then like carrying her out of the building.
Well, everybody claps. It sounds like that's his retelling of the story, and he's like, and then everybody clapped, and they're like, no, they didn't, Jack. That's what people say when they're making up a fake story. So that part was good, but then later, even later in the story, there's a montage of them like finishing the steel suit, and it's like this choir music. It sounds almost like gospel music, just kind of like very clap heavy, and it's kind of got this like churchy quality to it. But the main lyric in the song, which is mostly supposed to be about Shaq at this point, is the singer just keeps going, stand up. And we're just looking at all these shots of this woman bound to a wheelchair while the song in the background just keeps yelling, stand up. And it's like, she can't.
No.
That's the point. You gotta pick a different song.
Sparky's just like, turn that off, Shaq.
That was really, really unintentionally funny, because it's supposed to be about Shaq like standing up for what's right, but you can't cut to someone whose whole narrative is that they used to be able to do that, now they can't, and just be yelling it at them like that.
That's so rude.
Extremely rude. The only real payoff you get is that at the end of the movie, because she's so high tech, she does modify her wheelchair so it can turn into one of those like standing versions, where like it kind of moves like a transformer and like pushes her upright so she can kind of wheel around from a standing posture. And in that moment, it actually does play the stand up song again. So I was like,
oh, okay. So it was intentional. There was some intentionality behind it.
It just feels a lot more like, it felt like different people handled every scene with Sparky in it. Because like the first one, it's like, that's not very good storytelling for this. And then the second one was like, no, that's great. That's exactly what you wanted to pick. And then somebody came in and was like, you know that new sound you've been looking for?
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I feel like it almost doesn't need that part at the, like you could have stopped at the second one. It's like, okay, now like you've told a good story that's a disability narrative that, puts the power back in this character's hands. You don't need to then have her make a robot suit that she can walk in, like that almost undercuts what you're trying to say. It
wasn't like a full like exoskeleton suit. It was just like a chair that could be like kind of transform into being more like a backboard so that she could just be upright and like wheel around instead. Very, very strange. There's also a bit in the third act where she shoots missiles out of the chair, but we're not going to talk about that yet.
I mean, you need that. You need the missiles.
So that's the that's the like Sparky side of the story. She's like a supporting cast member. Shaq's story, obviously, there's more to it. He leaves the army and he goes back home to California to his like home neighborhood, and he's got a little brother who still lives in town, and then there's a woman that they both call grandma, who I guess that's who they live with. And this again is where the story starts to add interesting context for me, because they go out of their way to explain that there's like a lot of gang activity in this neighborhood. And even Shaq's little brother, who's just this cute little kid, the grandma says very flatly, like, I'm trying my best, but it's hard to keep him from joining one of these gangs. Like, which is a very like real thing to say in the middle of this very hokey kids movie. Like, you know, these people live in poverty and gang activity is everywhere. And it's like a really kind of sad reflection on like the kind of areas that a lot of people genuinely grow up in. And I was like, whoa, pretty real here, Mr. Steele.
Yeah.
And I also liked that part because knowing that the John Henry folk hero story is used in many cases in relation to like civil rights and like just stuff about like Black history in America, I was like, okay, this is like an interesting angle. We have this like white militant bad guy, and then we have Shaq trying to like protect the neighborhood using his own ingenuity and the stuff that he can make. But they don't really like capitalize on that in any way. I think they just throw it in the first act to like ground things a bit, and then they kind of just like fade that idea as it goes on. So that was a missed opportunity. That could have really like grounded the rest of the story. Whereas once he's in the steel suit, he's just like, I'm fighting crime.
Oh, yeah. See, I wonder if that's comes from the origin of the character, or if that was something that was introduced in this movie. But yeah, that seems like a pretty big thing thematically that would guide the story from that point forward, not something you just kind of sprinkle in there.
I know, and that's what made me bummed out, because overall, Steel has pretty solid like story structure and pacing. Like it hits all of the usual beats of a superhero origin movie. You even get like, after he builds the steel suit in the second act, you have the like first day on the job scene where he goes out for the first time and tries to just prevent some petty crimes. And he's still getting used to how his like equipment works, and some of it malfunctions. Just classic 90s superhero stuff. And then that part of it felt like the biggest dropped thread, because there's a follow-up in that Shaq's little brother gets enticed to go work for the bad guy, who is fronting as the owner of like a company in town. And that bad guy, Judd Nelson, is employing a lot of the gangs in the area. And so one of those kids like gets Shaq's brother involved unknowingly. And even there, I'm like, okay, we have something. Shaq's little brother is going to have to like go against the grain and make a choice at some point to like escape this cycle of bad decisions. And then he doesn't. He just becomes like a hostage at the end, and then Shaq saves him.
Oh, and then they don't circle back around on that at all?
No, it just peters out. The story gets too focused on the like just the combat and like the scheming and fighting Judd Nelson, and never properly pays off that dynamic about the literal ex-military man moving into this predominantly Black neighborhood and taking advantage of all these people to like build weapons and rob banks. It feels so pointed. And then the movie's so like hokey and cheesy overall that I think they were like, it's too serious. You know, like, let's let that speak for itself instead of actually making it part of the conclusion of the story.
That's interesting. I almost feel like this is the type of character and type of movie that actually might benefit from being like rebooted and the story told in a different way. You know, like I feel like that's not, obviously we have a lot of that, and it's not often necessary, and you see a lot of the same stuff. But this feels like a different character which has an interesting story underneath, and you could tell interesting stories through the lens of this world.
And it's a story that the movie sort of invented. Like, that's not the background of the comic book character. So it felt like they had something, and they just didn't commit to it.
Or just didn't know how to execute on it, or, they were just trying to make a different movie, and they wanted to throw those elements in there, because, it kind of had to be this, like, kids sci-fi action movie based on a comic book character. I don't know, but that's all very interesting, and the fact that it is such a lesser-known character, I feel like, is what actually gives it that opportunity where if you were to like revisit this, you could tell almost any new version of the story that you want, because there's not a lot of established lore for this character.
Yeah, seemingly not, at least not like very visible stuff. I think the most recent appearance of Steel was the 2021 like Superman and Lois TV show, which I've never seen. I've never seen a frame of that, so I don't know what it is.
Me neither. How does that show exist and nobody's ever seen it? It's weird.
I know, right? It was on the air for like, it might still be going. I think it's had several seasons, but Steele appears in that show.
Oh, he does.
Mm.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe that show only only airs in the Phantom Zone. Yeah.
I think a lot of the movies we're going to cover this season are from the Phantom Zone, and that people don't know what they are. And they didn't do anything wrong, and they're just there for some reason.
Yep.
So that was like the biggest thing for Steele, where I want to give it credit for what it introduced from a like storytelling perspective, but also note that like it didn't pay that off, and that makes the ending of the movie feel very weak. What I've probably not properly underscored yet is how hokey and cheesy this whole thing is. Like, those elements stand out in part because Shaquille O'Neal's just a big dumb doofus as Steele. Like, I can't even properly put it into words, but he's just not a good actor. And they don't really ask him to show a lot of range, but even when they do, like, you know, have you ever seen someone who's like not a trained actor and you can kind of see them with like their next line on the tip of their mouth and they're just like waiting to blurt it out when as soon as it's their turn to speak, instead of waiting even a half a second as if they're processing what someone else said?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I feel like you see this the most with athletes turned actors because, again, from a production marketing standpoint, it's like people obviously know who these guys are, you know, and oftentimes it's people who are very charismatic in real life. Like Shaquille O'Neal is very charismatic, but when you put them in front of a camera and they have to read specific lines, it's like all of that immediately goes out the window and they look like a scared robot trying to recite these things.
That's exactly what it is. Like, Shaq is giving Michael Jordan in Space Jam in that he's charming, but not even remotely convincing. And my favorite iteration of that is that, I don't know if it's the same scene where Sparky falls down and has to get herself back up, but around that point in the movie, they're hanging out with this character they just call like Uncle Joe, who owns like a junkyard that they use as their base of operations to build the suit, because it's, you know, remote and people won't see what they're doing. And Uncle Joe goes up to Shaq and he's just like, so what's the story with the lady? And Shaq just a millisecond later just goes, her father's dead. It just made me laugh so hard. Because it's like, that's not, you don't just have that on the tip of your tongue when someone says, so who's she? You don't just,
yeah, he was ready. He had his script in his hand and he knew what he had to say.
My favorite scene in the movie because it's so awkward and abrupt. It's like, that is the proper response of like, does she have any family? He's like, no, her parents both died and like she joined the army, yada, yada. But the rhythm of like, so what's her story? Her father's dead. It's really funny.
Yeah, this reminded me of like, have you seen those like Gronkowski commercials? Like he's doing some like insurance company. I think it's like AARP or something. And I mean, again, this is a similar thing where that guy, he's really charismatic in interviews and just in real life, but he is abysmally bad at acting and just reading these even like commercial lines. And that's all that's coming to mind with this like Shaq performance.
Yeah. It's not irritating. It's not like it slows the movie down because the movie kind of like slows itself down to meet his speed instead. But it is still pretty funny that he just cannot get any of these lines out. He doesn't even show. He's just pleasant throughout the whole story. Like, he undergoes some sad things, but he never really gets mad or sad or even all that happy. He's just Shaq.
Yeah. It's funny you mentioned Space Jam, too, because I feel like I obviously never thought this as a kid, but I've never really thought of, like, Michael Jordan giving a bad performance, per se, in Space Jam. I mean, I'm sure he definitely does, but, like, he has a natural charisma that I think does carry through in that film, especially when you compare the original Space Jam to the LeBron Space Jam, which was just an awful movie all around.
I did not see the LeBron Space Jam. I bet that's much, much worse. Shaq is serviceable for the kind of movie that they wanted to make for Steele. I imagine LeBron James is abysmal.
It's not even just him. It's like that whole movie is basically just like a commercial, like more so than any other movie I've ever seen. It just felt like a 2-hour ad for like any Warner Brothers property they could shove in there.
I think that was one of my notes in watching Steel in general. It's like, it's kind of just a bad movie. Like, it's not doing anything egregiously bad in any one area, but it suffers from being fairly dull. But I feel like a bad movie in the 90s, or a bad movie in like the analog filmmaking age, is so much easier to follow than a bad movie made now. Because we talk a lot about how nowadays with filmmaking, there's so many decisions creatively that are made after the movie has been shot, where like you could be in post-production still deciding whether a scene that you already filmed happens in the middle of the day or the middle of the night. And it leads to all of these like strange, disjointed final products. Whereas for Steel, it's a fairly slow, kind of boring superhero movie, but every shot is intentional and the scenes connect in a very obvious way. It feels like they actually adapted the script that they wrote. So it's very easy to watch in a way that a lot of newer bad movies are not.
Oh, I 100% agree. I mean, that's the point I was trying to bring up about Supergirl earlier too. It's like modern films could never do what this movie does and what Steel is doing too, where it is its own thing. It's a unique piece of media that even if it's bad has intentionality behind it. And also visually too, like somebody makes a joke in Supergirl, because they don't know that she's Superman's cousin. They're like, "Oh, why are you wearing that like costume?" And that line stood out to me because I watch I think this is just the first thing that comes to mind, but I see it all the time. I saw like the teaser for the new Street Fighter movie.
Yep.
And oh my gosh, I'm like, those costumes look like bad cosplay. Like I've seen cosplayers at conventions with more convincing versions of those characters than what we're putting on these and I'm sure that's a very expensive movie and I'm sure a lot of work went into that costuming for it to look awful. But then you look at like this movie, like Steel and Supergirl, and it's just like their costuming just looks visually consistent with the world that they're in. It doesn't look like they're like playing dress up, And I feel like that's something that'll probably come up a lot in this season with these movies we're going to talk about.
That's a great way to put it. They tried to blend the thing they were adapting with whatever environment they were placing them in. You do sometimes get the opposite, which I find very annoying. It's probably my least favorite trope in modern superhero storytelling is the gag where through some arbitrary circumstance, the character ends up dressed in a much more literal way, like their original comic book design, and somebody makes a joke about how it looks stupid. Like, that's in everything. Every show or movie where it's like, oh, look, he put on the original Loki helmet, and then somebody went, that's dumb. You know what I mean? Just like...
Yeah, but now I feel like now we are veering more in that direction where it's like people are like, no, now they have to actually wear it or we won't accept this.
Or the fanboys will get mad, and we can't disappoint the fanboys who will come see the movie regardless.
Right, exactly. Who are we even catering to anymore?
Fanboy word of mouth is so ethereal. Like, if the fanboys say it stinks, everyone will go watch it anyway to be like, oh, I wonder how bad it is. Or if they say it's good, they're like, oh, okay, I was going to go see it anyway because nothing else hits theaters anymore.
Yeah.
It's pointless.
It doesn't matter. It's just to generate which I mean, I think that ties into the point that you're making, which is why I think this season will be interesting too, because it's like modern, this was always the case, but especially so with like modern superhero films. They're way more, they're just like I said with that Space Jam movie too. They're products more than films. We've tipped the scale way too far in that direction where, like you said, it doesn't even matter. Just throw the name Supergirl on there and then people will go see it. It doesn't matter what the film actually is, the content of it, as long as you can cut enough into a trailer to make it look like a real movie.
And yet for some reason, there's people working night and day to add 100,000 Easter eggs that people can draw red circles around in YouTube video thumbnails. And it's like, who is this for? Is it for the most diehard people or is it for like everyone at once?
That's the sadly ironic thing about it is I personally know several people who work on those types of films and they're working very hard. There are tons of people who are putting a lot of effort in and working very hard on those films in, every department. But it's just the overall final product is just, like you mentioned earlier, it's so non-committal. They start filming before they even have a finished script. It just lacks that intentionality off jump so that you have no idea even what you've made by the end.
Yeah.
Which is upsetting, especially, for the people that did put years of their life into trying to make this the best version of it could be. It's not like there's not people who aren't putting effort and creativity in, but it's just in these older movies, especially of this genre, even if they were bad, quote unquote, it didn't feel that way. It's it was just the production pipeline was very different.
Yeah, it's just a forgotten aspect of a lot of movies you would watch around this time and say like, wow, this is awful. Where if you showed somebody Steel now, I think they'd just like rate it higher because it makes sense. Like the story has a beginning, middle, and end, and the characters stay the same throughout, and they don't bog it down with scenes of somebody rolling up next to the Steel sidekick suit and going, next time, baby, and then running away. Like,
right, exactly.
There's no sequel baiting in Steel. There's no post-credit scenes. There's no Steel will return in Superman and Lois 30 years from now.
When it's still on the air.
Yeah. It's competent. It's boring. It's bad. But it's not hard to watch. And it made the movie, for me, going back, a lot more charming than probably anything on the air right now that's like a superhero show or movie.
Yeah, which is true and upsetting, but
true. I do want to make sure to mention, going into Steel, I was like, okay, stunt casting Shaquille O'Neal, still active NBA guy at the time. I assumed there'd be tongue-in-cheek superhero references. How far do you think they went with referencing Shaquille O'Neal himself?
Oh, I'm going to say no less than 2 or 3 references to him being a basketball player of some kind.
That's exactly right. It is crucial to the plot. When he gets to LA, he leaves the army after the opening sequence where the big explosion happens and some people die. He leaves the army, he goes back home, and he walks past a group of kids playing basketball on like a street side court, and the ball rolls over to his foot, and he stops and picks it up, and the kid kind of gestures like, why don't you take the shot? And he misses, because the character in the movie is not good at basketball. And then there's a second instance of this later where they're just in their like junkyard cave, and he tries to throw something in a basket from like vaguely free throw distance and misses, and then says like, I could never make those. Which, if you don't know, that's the joke about Shaquille O'Neal, is that he was a very good basketball player, but people say he can't make free throws.
Yep. And he's laughing at himself.
Yep. And then, in the climax of the film, there's like a shootout inside of a warehouse because Judd Nelson has made all these super weapons and Steel is there to stop him. And Steel gets trapped inside a small room with his little brother, and Judd Nelson throws a grenade in there, a live grenade. And the brother is like, Shaq, look, there's a hole in the grate in the ceiling. You just need to throw the grenade through the opening and we won't die. And he's like, but I never make these. And he's like,
no.
But you can make a free throw, Shaq. You can do it. It's weird that he called him Shaq in the scene, but
yeah, leave it in.
Yeah. And then he does. He makes a free throw with a live grenade, and he saves himself.
I hate it now. I like the second one. Leave the second one in there. Like he tries to throw something in the trash can, says he can't make free throws. That's funny. Leave it in. The other ones, cut them. Take them out. Don't need that.
That stuff stinks. All the references to the DC characters are lame. Like by the time they leave at the end, the little brother's like, oh, I could go out on the street with you. I could be your Robin. And like, what does that mean? Like, what are superheroes in a world where there's a real one? Like, it doesn't make sense. You should just pretend they don't exist.
Yeah.
Otherwise, it's too odd. It's like, why are you dressed up as a guy from a comic book and not like, who is this man of steel? I don't know. I don't like it. I thought those references were lame, and none of them were funny. The one about the Batcave was super lame. Like, he's driving away from the police because he's a vigilante, and he escapes into his junkyard hideout through a very, like, Batcave-style sequence of returning home. And the cops are like, where'd he go? And the other one kind of, like, smirks and is like, the Batcave? And it's like, what? Yes, literally in this case. He went into a giant junk cave. It doesn't make sense. I don't know. That's where we were in the 90s. That's the level we had.
Well, I mean, it continues because I was like, Shaq, doing the basketball in the movie. It reminds me of when The Rock, like, literally did a rock bottom in one of the Fast and Furious movies.
Oh, yeah. After spending years being like, I'm not the wrestler guy anymore, I'm an actor. Then he comes back around and it's just like, he might as well just start cutting promos as The Rock in the middle of the movie.
Yeah, well, and that's what like changed the trajectory of his career, honestly, was when he went back to like what he should have done from the first place is just leaning into that persona.
It's a concept in wrestling, the idea of like cheap pops, like things that will make the crowd cheer but are very like vapid and have a low return on investment because eventually people get sick of it. And that's what Steel is, unfortunately, chock full of. And I think if they had leaned just a bit harder into the like real world context that they tried to place this character in, you'd have a much better version of this movie. I don't need to go through the whole story. It's a superhero movie. You get it. I think the only other point I wanted to make is that the action's not very good. Like, he has a giant hammer, but he mostly uses the hammer as a gun.
It's a gun also?
Yeah, I actually wrote down a list of all of Steel's powers in the context of the movie, because as a comic book character, he mostly is designed to model Superman. So, like, he flies and he has, like, super strength. But in the movie Steel, he's just a guy in a metal suit who has, like, advanced weaponry. He's more like, this is maybe a deeper cut, but in Batman Beyond, the sci-fi future Batman, there's a character called Armory who just had, like, every weapon ever made at his disposal. He just had a giant arsenal of, like, complicated guns and grenades and rocket launchers and stuff. And Steel felt more like that in this movie than he did like Steel.
Oh, well, I mean, that's honestly fine. Like, I think that's, this is their interpretation, which is fine by me. I think the basic premise is guy puts on high-tech suit.
It's a high-tech suit movie, and he's got a lady in the chair reading, directions and instructions. It's just a way to create a rhythm when he's out on his missions. He does have, in addition to a hammer that is a gun, let's just look at his powers real quick while we're here. He's got the sonic blaster gun, which knocks things over. He's got a laser gun, which fires a very, very tiny, unimpressive laser beam. He can turn his entire body into a powerful magnet, which comes up more than you would expect.
It's useful, I guess.
Yep. He has front and rear view cameras in his head.
In his head? Is he wearing a helmet?
Yeah, he's got a helmet on. Kind of.
Oh, because none of the posters has the. Oh, actually, never mind. I see one image where he has a helmet on.
It's just a funny beat in his like first night out as a superhero where these guys try to sneak up behind him, and Sparky in the chair is like, behind you, because there's a camera that they have hooked up to show what's behind his head. And then he turns around, and the guy, in order to sell this very poorly executed bit, goes like, it's like he's got eyes in the back of his head. And it's like, that's one of his powers? He's got a rear view camera? Is four-wheel drive on this list too? What is this?
Yeah, he's got traction control.
And then that's pretty much it. He does have a motorcycle, and I'd say the most complicated thing he does is he mounts the hammer gun on the front of the motorcycle and then can shoot the lasers off of the bike.
These all seem like things to limit just like visually how much they would have to ask Shaq to do, like physically. Yeah. Like all you gotta do is stand there, point your laser gun. Like you don't need to go around and like move.
Yeah, he like lightly kind of butts people away with the hammer, but there's very little like swing the hammer kind of motion. And it's like, given the John Henry connection, I'm surprised that's not part of it. If anything, it's like, what if you're going to invoke that character, which they do by name? They reference the John Henry myth in the story of this movie. And yet, even though the bad guys are represented as having like advanced technology, Shaq is battling them with advanced technology. Like, you see how there's like not really clear allegory there?
Yeah, there's supposed to be an irony to it, and like, or is he supposed to, I don't know, like feel bad about using this technology? There's something there, maybe, but
there's something there. That's my review of Steel. There's something there.
That's it. That's it. There is something there. That is correct.
Yeah. Right. Frank, that brings us into wrap up and final scores here on the first episode of season 2 of the pod. How do you think this went? I'm excited. I didn't know how Forgotten Superhero season would feel. It's pretty fun.
Stop stealing my line.
I'm sorry, I took a catchphrase.
I forgot we had to score these movies.
Yeah, we never did scores before the podcast started, but it's kind of like the comedic conceit of the whole thing is like if you want to know our thoughts, listen to the last hour and a half. If you want to score out of 10, skip to the end.
Yeah. So am I going first with my score for Supergirl?
Yes, because you did the first review, I will let you give your final thoughts on Supergirl, and then I'll talk about Steel again.
Like I said, I really enjoyed Supergirl. It surprised me. Like I went in with low expectations, and I got something I wasn't looking for, in the sense of, like I said, it was the most like literal one-to-one screen adaptation of a comic book I think I've ever seen. You know, like it felt like this is in a way, like the purest way to translate this material. And I liked it for that. I liked the cast. I liked the on-screen special effects. The visual effects where it got a little, hokey, but there's, even her flying around, which I didn't mention in the review. There was a lot of like stunt wire work that actually looked really good, because the lead actress like practiced for like a long time, like leading up to the filming of the movie, to kind of do this like stunt work essentially herself. And so there's a scene early on where she's like learning about her powers when she first lands on Earth. And she's kind of like flying through the trees, and I'm like, this actually looks really good, like this looks like convincing.
Yeah.
And then it goes from there to the classic Christopher Reeve like flying in front of a blue screen,
Which is fine. That's like iconography for the series at that point.
Totally. So yeah, and of course Ellis being there was a huge
Ellis
pop.
from Die Hard, Hans, Bubby. We're going to sound insane to someone who has not seen Die Hard.
Yeah, go watch that if you haven't.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, kind of like you just said with Steel, it's not good in most senses of the word.
It's not a good in the way of being good versus bad.
Yeah. So hard to score. I'm going to score it based on just like my appreciation for it. It feels like a 6. I'm going to say 6 out of 10. Feels
6 out of 10
appropriate
Supergirl?
for Supergirl. Yeah.
I think that's important to restate, since we're kicking off a new competition here. We generally use the ratings out of 10 to be like, is this the best version of this movie we could have gotten? Some things on paper, like there's no version of Supergirl 1984 that's going to crack the AFI Top 100. That doesn't mean it can't get a high score if it like hits its target. And so I think a 6 out of 10 is totally fair. It was aiming to be a fun superhero romp in the style of Christopher Reeve Superman, and somewhat succeeded. It's nothing crazy. You're not going to go out of your way to see it, but it sounds like it was a fun time.
Yeah, but that being said, I would recommend it. I mean, honestly, if you're interested, especially with that new Supergirl movie coming out, like, I think you specifically would like it if you watched it. So,
good.
Yeah,
I might.
I like Supergirl.
I think that you're going to see, if not already, a lot of like attention on this movie because the new one's coming out. I'm sure we are not the first or only people to think like, let's talk about the old Supergirl. But we're just going to assume we did it the best.
Yeah, probably. I mean,
probably.
Just arguably. Yeah.
Because we're not nerds about it.
Like, don't be weird, but like, yeah, no, we're the best.
Yeah. Because we're cool.
So cool,
Don't
man.
you want to hear
so
what
cool.
two cool guys think about Supergirl?
Just a couple of cool guys talking about movies.
All right, 6 out of 10. Anything else as part of that wrap up, or do you feel good about it?
No, yeah, I feel good about it. It was a positive experience. It was a good one for the first episode of this new season, I think. I think it feels right. Yeah,
absolutely. I think it's very funny that we never know what the other person is going to pick, and yet we often find like an oddly obvious connecting thread. Like the fact that we both picked Superman adjacent characters for episode 1, who is the most like well-known superhero of all. That's awesome. I don't know. That's kind of serendipitous how that turned out.
Yeah, it is cool. Just a couple of cool guys, man.
Just a couple of cool guys watching movies, etc. Anyway, over to Steel. Steel was fine. Steel is probably, based on how you've described it, Not as good as Supergirl. Not as much of a, like, definitely watch Steel, because in the end it is kind of slow. I didn't get into it a lot, but, like, the action scenes are very long and drawn out and nothing really happens. There's like a 10-minute scene of Steel chasing a guy through like a train yard while the like trains are like kind of coming in to be like reconnected. So there's just these like really slow moving train cars, and they keep trying to like ramp up the tension by being like, look out. And then he just like gently gets out of the way. Like, that's the pace. That's the pace of Steel overall, is like, what could we physically get Shaq to do? That's the ceiling for the movie. And the man was training for the Olympics. So on one hand, he's like a superhuman athlete, and on the other, he can barely dodge a train.
Oh, that was probably part of it, though. Like, why they specifically like gave him those gadgets and filmed it in a way to limit his mobility. They're like, we can't endanger this man. We can't let him, like, no possibility of him getting hurt while he's making this movie because he has to go perform in the Olympics.
That's true. I know that the USA Dream Team for basketball was the 92 Olympics, I want to say. I don't know how USA did in 96, but if they lost, I think we can blame Shaq and therefore Steel.
Yeah, I already did, honestly. That's
already
why I
did.
picked it.
Back then, I blamed them.
Yeah, I was 5, and I was like, nah.
Nah.
That's not...
Try again, buddy.
That's what I said.
Yeah.
I was pretty cool back then, too.
Yeah. Just a cool guy watching Steel in theaters going, not my style.
Not for me. Don't like it.
Yeah. So Steel is aggressively okay. And for that reason, I think I would rate it like a 4 out of 10. It had potential to be better than that, but it kind of whiffed it in the third act by just having a really uninspired conclusion. I mean, even the way he beats Judd Nelson at the end is so boring. Like, Judd Nelson's whole thing is he's like, I'm making these dangerous weapons that are more powerful because they're like unsafe to use. And so he points a gun at Shaq that's like another sonic boom gun or something. And he's like, not even you can stand up to this. And then he fires it at him and it ricochets off of Shaq and just hits him and he dies. And it's like, Shaq didn't do anything. Shaq's just very lucky that Judd Nelson was wrong about that.
Yeah, that's the best kind of victory, where you just don't even try, really.
Your opponent just ring outs themselves, and you're like, oh, I guess I won. Cool.
All right, cool.
Just make another boring Batman reference, and then we'll close out the movie.
Check that off the list.
So yeah, Steel, I almost just called the movie Shaq. Steel, starring Shaq, as a 4 out of 10. Nothing wrong with it. I think if you're interested in that character and are really in the weeds and wanting to watch some older superhero stuff, I wouldn't say like you're gonna have a bad time, but it's very skippable. Whereas Supergirl sounds like a little bit more of a jam between the two.
Yeah, sure. I would agree to that.
Okay, well that brings us to the end of the first episode of our Forgotten Superheroes season. The way things work is that we have banked those scores. So I recommended Supergirl, so I get 6 points, because that's what Frank gave it as a score. Frank, you get 4 points for recommending Steel. So I win today's episode. Hooray. But also, we're going to keep track of cumulative point totals across this entire season, which will be shorter than our last one. I think we're eyeing maybe a 6-episode season. So by the end, whoever's movies have gotten a cumulative higher ranking, they'll be like the season 2 champion. Which, I'll be honest, I'm envisioning a two-peat? What do they call it when you win twice? A repeat, I guess.
They call it not gonna happen is what they call it, Mr. Repeat.
Yeah, so we'll see if I can win season 2 or Frank is gonna pull it back. It's very close, and all of season 1 was very close as well. So still a lot of time. The only other thing we have left to do for today, Frank, is we have to pick our 2 movies for the next episode. I guess because I went first, because I won episode 1, I will give the first recommendation for next time, and then you can pick one for me.
Yeah, right. Fine.
My list on my phone, it closed on me. I got to pull it back up.
Oh, just pick one at random.
Iron Man 2. No, you are going to watch for next time 1992's The Shadow, starring Alec Baldwin.
Oh, Alec Baldwin. Oh, you know what? I think I had this written down on my list too.
The Shadow is in the story tradition of like pulp action heroes. These were people who were part of like 1930s serial films and TV spots and stuff, like shorthand kind of Lone Ranger type characters. And there was several movies in the 90s that brought back these guys, but we've seen a couple of them. Like I know you and I both saw The Rocketeer. That's a good one.
That's a fun movie. Yeah.
The Shadow, I think, is in the same vague category as something like The Phantom or The Rocketeer, if you've seen those. But I don't think either of us has seen it, right?
No, I have not seen it.
Awesome. 1992's The Shadow. That'll be your movie to review next time.
Cool. Alec Baldwin. Nothing contentious there at all.
Nothing contentious about Mr. Baldwin. Great guy, I guess.
Yeah. Looking forward to it. No, that'll be fine. I am interested. Like I said, I had that one jotted down too, so it's a good pick.
Thank you.
And it looks like what is this, season 1? I also have a 90s movie. So
What is this, season 1? That's a joke for the longtime fans.
Remember last episode? Yeah, that one.
Remember the one right before this?
I have for you 1993's The Meteor Man, which is a film that is produced, written, directed, and starring Robert Townsend, who, fun fact, I've met, actually.
Okay.
I worked on his documentary film a few years ago. It was The Making of the Five Heartbeats, which was a documentary about the making of the Five Heartbeats, which is a previous
It's a stand-up act? What is it? What's the deal with his heartbeats?
But yeah, I just thought that was interesting. This is like a sort of like cult superhero comedy film, I believe. I've of course never seen it, but it's maybe the thing he's most well known for. And I know he briefly had a sitcom series as well. So he just seems like just a cool filmmaker, and this was like a passion project of his that I think has since fallen under ownership of Marvel. So I think Meteor Man is like officially a Marvel character now too.
Oh, interesting. I don't know about The Shadow. They might also be under DC or Marvel, or maybe it's independent, but that sounds interesting. I like the idea of changing up genres, going more like comedy.
Yeah, no, I think this will be hopefully good. I don't know.
Hopefully good. That's the point of the show. It's called Meet Your Double Feature.
Oh, I get it now.
Well, that about does it for episode 1. Frank, I guess before we go, we can quickly plug socials, and if any updates about your movie, if we have them. So if you want to follow Meet Your Double Feature, we release episodes every 2 weeks on alternating Thursdays on all major podcast platforms, as well as on YouTube. You can follow our socials on Instagram at Meet Your Double Feature, Blue Sky at MYDFpod, or you can visit our website, meetyourdoublefeature.com, which has all of our episodes, as well as a couple of like written blog reviews and additional content that we're uploading over time. So that's where you can find us. Really just search Meet Your Double Feature anywhere and you'll find it. But Frank, I don't know if there is any news right now, but Frank's actually in the process of releasing his first independent film himself. It's called Meteor Man.
It's pretty good.
Pretty good. But no, just Frank, just in case we have any new listeners, do you want to just generally plug the movie that you're working on?
Yeah, so if you want to check out the feature film that I produced and was also the cinematographer for, called Nate Mariah in Venice. It just finished its festival run late last year and is going to be available for streaming online early this year. So if you want to keep up to date with that, you can find us on Instagram at Sardonic Motion Pictures and on our website at sardonicmp.com.
Yeah, absolutely. Once we have more firm details about the streaming release for Nate and Mariah in Venice, you can be sure we'll be telling you about that as often as we can. But for now, just stay tuned, and please rejoin us in 2 weeks for the next episode of Meet Your Double Feature.
Bye!
I knew he was bringing it back. He's doing it again.
We're back!
We're back!
Coming up next, it's The Meteor Man, followed by The Shadow on Meet Your Double Feature.